things are not looking good. Things are not looking good over at Bungie. And if you didn't know, this article was recently released, and it talks a lot about what's going on over at Bungie. I will read this because even I didn't read the whole thing. I kind of saw like a little bit here and there on the internet. But this is the full article by Rebecca Valentine. Bungie devs say atmosphere is soul-crushing amid layoffs, cuts, and fear of total Sony takeover, which, yeah, that could be a thing. I mean, Sony owns Bungie, but they allowed them the independence and stuff. But, yeah, so I'll read this, and we'll give, like, a huge overall, like, my thoughts on the whole thing at the end. But yeah, let's read this. 1 month after a major round of layoffs impacted roughly 100 Bungie employees of 1,200, those remaining at Destiny developer say the cuts as well as other cost-cutting measures came alongside an apparent scramble by studio leadership to avoid a total Sony takeover. As it currently stands, Bungie is, on paper, a fully independent subsidiary of Sony, but its board of directors has been divided since the takeover in July of 2022. Among its current members are PlayStation Studios head Herman Holst, Sony Senior VP Eric Lempel, Bungie co-founder Jason Jones, and Bungie CTO Louis Villegas, and Bungie CO Pete Parsons. I'm pretty sure I butchered those names. I apologize. The board as a whole is split between Sony and Bungie representatives, with Parsons serving as a tiebreaker vote, but speaking to IGN under condition of anonymity. Oh my god, words are so hard for me. Multiple current and former Bungie employees described a department meeting that took place shortly after the layoffs, in which leaders hinted that this shared power may not last forever. Sony did not respond to IGN's request for comment on this piece, but Bungie declined to comment. So, okay. Declaration of Dependence. While the exact details of Sony's deal to acquire Bungie remain unknown to the public or employees, sources say they were told by leaders that the current split board structure is contingent on Bungie meeting certain financial goals. If Bungie falls short of certain financial thresholds by too great an amount, Sony is allowed to dissolve the existing board and take full control of the company. And with Destiny 2 expansion, the final shape delayed into the next fiscal year, and Bungie still investing heavily on Marathon, many employees understand that Bungie is struggling to meet the necessary targets to keep its last vestige of freedom. Such a takeover would necessarily be shocking given its 2022 acquisition, but it would be nevertheless be a stunning development for a company that has historically prided itself on its independence. Yeah, that's just crazy to think about. If Sony takes over Bungie, like that's a huge change. Like everything would just change over at Bungie. The Bungie that we know would not be there, but we'll talk more about that obviously when we give our final thoughts. It was with this threat looming that Bungie leadership, not Sony, according to Parsons, made the choice to lay off roughly 100 employees last month. But the cost cutting at Bungie isn't limited to just personnel. Multiple current employees confirmed to IGN that the company has implemented numerous other cost cutting measures recently, including a studio-wide hiring freeze, reduced travel budgets, elimination of holiday bonuses, keeping its annual Bungie Day virtual, delaying its week-long company Penthalon event to next December, and reducing numerous morale events such as cooking and knitting classes. Knitting classes. Okay. From monthly to quarterly. Bungie is also pausing or fully ending benefits like annual employee compensation adjustments to meet market rates, its new hire lunch program, employee donation matching, its peer recognition program, and gift cards for employees' birthdays. And yearly studio performance bonuses this year will only be contractually obligated 80% minimum after being above 100% for good performance several previous years running. Along with recent layoffs, this has resulted in a massive decay in morale with the company, according to IGN sources, one of whom told us that the mood within the studio has been soul-crushing over the last month, and it doesn't sound like management is making any significant efforts towards improving the atmosphere either, according to those still with the company. Employee frustration and sadness in the days and weeks following the layoffs has met with surprising amount of indifference or even outright flippancy or hostility from management. Several people we spoke to told us that leaders and reiterated across multiple meetings that they couldn't guarantee there wouldn't be more layoffs. With two specifically confirming previous reports that Chief People Officer Holly Barkovi outright stating that layoffs were a lever the company would pull again. Why? Like, okay. So we're just gonna be like, oh yeah, this is gonna happen again. I know that you're all sad that, you know, a lot of friends and colleagues that you really looked up to and really helped with your work and stuff like that. I know that sucks. But it can happen again, you know. It's just around the corner. Oh my goodness. You don't do that. You don't just be like, anyways. We know we need Final Shape to do well, one source told IGN. And the feeling at the studio is that if it doesn't, we're definitely looking at more layoffs. And that sucks because I just feel like there's just not enough time, not enough resources to really make Final Shape like this huge like flip. But okay. Others said they were rebuffed repeatedly and discouraged from even discussing the layoffs. Whenever they tried to ask questions, employees in one department recalled a post-layoffs Q&A session where a department head was asked if leadership taking salary cuts to prevent layoffs had been considered, only to respond that Bungie was not that type of company. Oh my god. Oh my god. I already seen this, but it's still, woo, just reading that part. Oh, anyways, okay. Again, to the end of the what's more, sources we spoke to pointed out that many of the Bungie employees who were laid off were beloved community leaders within the studio, including many who had spearheaded employee inclusion and support efforts. Several people who spoke to expressed anger at the layoff of several people who we spoke. My goodness, words are so hard. Several people we spoke to expressed anger at the layoff of Bungie General Counsel Don McGowan, who played a key role in Bungie winning a historic suit against a player who harassed a Bungie developer. Others laid off include noticeable number of members of Bungie's DE and I clubs, including co-heads of Pride at Bungie, Women at Bungie, and Accessibility at Bungie. When combined with other recent resource cuts, these dismissals have led to fears these clubs might be shut down. While researching this article, IGN noted that the public news articles announcing Women's at Bungie and Accessibility at Bungie on its official blog were no longer accessible on the Bungie website, though it's unclear exactly when or why this happened, or if it's just an unintentional reoccurring bug with the blog. I'm angry, I'm upset. This isn't what I came here to do, one person said. It feels like many higher-ups aren't listening to the data and are like, we just need to win our fans back. They still like us. No, they don't. We got rid of some of our most knowledgeable, beloved folks who have been here for 20 plus years. Every day I walk in afraid that I or my friends are next. No one is safe. Morale at Bungie is got to be at an all-time low. And we said this a while back when the layoffs first happened, but, you know, and all this information broke out where the developers were really wanting change and just the higher-ups were not listening. And you had all these stupid decisions like don't over-deliver and stuff when developers really wanted to over-deliver to make changes, and it's just ignored. But, so... Bungie eroding. Another anxiety source discussed with us that many of the reductions made at Bungie recently were part of a broader, more move toward outsourcing. Multiple individuals across various departments told us they'd heard discussions within their teams of plans to increase outsourcing both before and in the wake of the layoffs. One team where those discussions have already become reality as is in the quality assurance QA. While outsourcing QA is extremely common practice industry-wide, Bungie historically has also enlisted an army of in-house embedded QA testers working with individual teams. It's a setup the studio has prided itself on for years now, but QA sources within the studio are now afraid that strategy is on its way out. We previously reported that Bungie's QA team saw a rash of mysterious departures in the months before the layoffs, and also noted a team-wide culture shift toward a general pool of testers consisting of both in-house and outsourced individuals. Former and current QA department members at Bungie tell us that in the last year, the team has seen increasing workloads and responsibilities, with more and more disciplinary actions taken for seemingly minor infractions. They also perceive growing hostility from team and company leaderships, including a meeting in which QA was said to be referred to by leaders as non-developers. Ooh, geez. In total, sources tell us that over 10% of Bungie's internal QA department was either fired or laid off between early October and early November, including both the reported layoffs and the departures leading up to them. I know that there was also, like, just to add in a little bit more, there was a lot of cheaters apparently reported, like, through the weekend with the trials and stuff. Like, it just felt like it just got way worse, and that kind of made people think that a lot of the security team was laid off, and there was a ban wave for a lot of those cheaters, but it just kind of, like, it made people kind of go, well, oh, what's going on? Like, what is the security team okay? And yeah, so it's, and just, geez. In a year that will go down in gaming history due to the sheer number of layoffs and studio closures, Bungie's situation nonetheless stands out, and not for good reasons. It's well known, long-standing studio that, despite historic culture problems, and had managed to cultivate an increasingly positive community of fans around a beloved game while improving its own internal culture by gradual degrees. But in the wake of an acquisition that shocked many Bungie employees we've spoken to, and which seemed out of character with the studio's independent streak, it feels to many like that's all falling apart. Beloved colleagues have been laid off, benefits are vanishing, and many feel the more people-oriented, as one source put it, culture of recent years is being torn to pieces by the very Bungie leaders that touted it for so long, and seemingly also those same leaders can retain a vestige of control over a company that's already been sold away anyways. Folks still there are very much feeling us versus them between leadership and workers. One person said that trust has been eroded. Given their recent actions, the question of whether or not Sony will finally manage to swallow Bungie whole in a few months seems less and less important than the question of what Bungie's current management will do to lead to the company forward today. Yeah, this whole thing is rough. Because Final Shape got delayed, and I just don't think that it's realistic enough to be like, oh, this is going to, like, Final Shape alone is going to fix everything. I mean, as you heard from this article, is that layoffs can happen again, and it will continue to happen whenever there's financials that are not being met. And I've said this before as well, that the developers are trying their best, and it is what, like it mentioned at the end, us versus them. You have the leadership, you have the higher ups, and then you have the developers, and the developers have vision of exactly where Destiny should be going and where they would like it to go. And they want to fix these issues. They want to have just the old Bungie back, essentially, and keep it that way. And you have leadership saying stuff that that's not real. Like, for them to say that the community still loves Bungie is just, it's so tone deaf. Like, have you not seen what people have been reacting to with the layoffs? Like, I think that the Bungie community has this where it's just like they have this connection with Bungie where if it turns away of where it seems like it's not the old Bungie, they are not going to be happy. They're not going to buy your expansions. They're not going to want to buy into your Eververse microtransactions if Bungie themselves is not happy. And it's just, or if there's just not enough hope for the future. Just saying that, hey, have your hope up for the future while it doesn't look that way is not enough. And they laid off a lot of people that like, to us, that were like super important, like Michael Salvatore for the music. Like, we're just, that for majority of us where we're just, that's a big, like, what, and for the developers, they lost a lot of people that they look up to, that are very knowledgeable about how things should go and stuff, and now they're gone. And it's just, there's so much morale loss and chaos, and it's just, it's depressing. It really is. And like, I mean, where was it? It was up here. Yeah, not that type of company. Them asking if leadership. So it was, I think, there was a statement that the higher ups didn't get a bonus, which is different than getting a salary cut. So they probably just didn't get the bonus, but not getting a salary cut because they're not that type of company. Oh my God, what are you doing? Oh my God, it's so infuriating to read that part, because as history has shown, good leadership goes a long way. And the old Nintendo CEO, like during when, I think it was like when the Wii U was suffering, but any moment that Nintendo was like suffering, instead of blaming the employees and like, firing people and stuff, he cut his salary. He took a hit on himself. And like, that's where it should go, because everything that's going wrong, to even the acquisition with Sony, like all this stuff where there's just so much stress, that where Bungie could be not independent anymore and Sony takes control. And I know that a lot of people could say like that could be better. It's just, I guess, how you may look at it, but I personally think that it would not be better. I don't think that like Sony taking control of Bungie and reshaping everything might not be the route, but that doesn't change the fact that where things are right now with leadership isn't any better or good. Obviously, it's horrible. And leadership, if that does not change, I don't see things getting better. Like, you have developers who are trying to tell them the actual data, to tell them the actual feedback, to tell them where the community is when it comes to Destiny. And you have these higher ups just being like, oh, the community still loves us. We just need to get their trust. And it's like, not like this. When this kind of stuff is happening, and we're reading into this where the leadership are not taking salary cuts because, and we have these horrible statements of not that type of company. That then impacts the Destiny community greatly. Like, they do not understand their community at all. Like, they're not just like, oh, fun Destiny and that's it. When Bungie and the developers are impacted, the morale of the community is also impacted. And yeah, like, I think that at this point it's just, we could probably see this where Sony does take control of Bungie at some point. I mean, they purchased Bungie for a lot of money. But whoever that signed this, I mean, I don't know who did, but this punished everybody, the developers. Like, it's like, you know, oh, good, you get all this money, you know, all these higher ups, you just start firing people. But it's just, yeah, I don't know. Like, they're like I mentioned before, again, and I'm gonna sound like a broken record. It's the disconnect of the higher ups and the developers, where it's just they're not connecting. Like, the leadership needs to understand where the Destiny community actually is, what they're feeling, and what the developers actually would like to do, and they need to listen and try and, like, make these things happen. Because just trying to, you know, press monetization so hard and that's it. I mentioned this before, where like SRL would have probably been a great asset into the Dawning event every year, where it evolves every year. Because the problem with these events that they try and do intensive work on the monetization every single time it comes back, there's not really an excitement on the core level of content that's there, where it's like, oh man, like, nobody's like lining up to go bake cookies. Like, that's not something to be super duper excited about. Like, when you look at other games and their events, there's a reason to come back. And I'm pretty sure developers see this too, where it's like, yeah, just being like, hey, here's this really cool Witcher set of armor that's $20 per armor set, and there is no bundle where it's cheaper. Like, you can't get the bundle like where it's got all three of them for like $40 or something like that, so then there's a discount for you buying all three. No, you gotta buy every single one individually, and they're all $20. Hooray! Like, yeah, they may look like they're really cool, but nobody's lining up to be like, yeah. I mean, well, there are people that will buy it, but it's like, it's expensive. And if that's all they're really focused on, like, it's just these cosmetics, the monetization tactics. I mean, we recently had the starter pack drama that was happening, and thankfully they took that down. But these are decisions that somebody made and thought it was a great idea. It's not. I am scared for Destiny's future, for the employees that are still working at Bungie. I mean, you could see that they're terrified because of all these layoffs, like, and being told, oh yeah, we'll pull that lever again if you know, financials are not going so well. We'll just pull it again and, you know, lay off more people, even though that, again, who's to blame? Not the people you're laying off. Most likely it's not. It's the leadership. It's definitely going with the leadership. You see it. You hear it. You know it. And we're still making these poor decisions. Like, I don't know. You know, Final Shape, it's got 6 months till it's released, well, 7 months. And I don't know what the episodes are going to really do as they change the seasonal model, which, you know, them going this seasonal model that they've been, where it's kind of back and forth and way too the same and just playing it safe too much. But granted, this season, and it sucks getting this article and seeing all this, like, when there has been some positivity, like, recently with this new dungeon's really, really good. And then this, so yeah, I was hoping that I wasn't going to be making any more negative videos, but I know that I'm going to be asked a lot about this. I already have been. So I just kind of wanted to read this and give my thoughts on this. Like, no matter what, I also say this. I know people are like, oh, don't buy Destiny, whatever. Again, the people that get the lever are not the people that, like, are to blame. Like, it's the developers get harmed. So there's no right or wrong, like, way of doing things. So if you still want to get Final Shape, that's your choice. If you don't, that's your choice. Like, it's just, we're all very wanting, that we all want Destiny to succeed. We want Bungie to succeed. We want change. That's for sure. I mean, I think there needs to be to a point where, instead of we can't, like with the Forsaken commentary, where people are saying that expansions should be at the level of at least a Forsaken, where also we would see every year a couple Crucible maps, a couple strikes, overhauls to things in the game as well. Not saying like ridiculous, but at least to where for that year the core playlists feel a little bit different. Like, I keep talking about strikes a million times. But yeah, like getting a couple maps for Gambit, for Strikes, and for Crucible, and just getting a dungeon and a raid, at least a big story, maybe 1 or 2 patrol zones like Forsaken did, but a level of Forsaken almost every single year or every other year would have been nice, and it would be great if they would try and do that, but I don't think that they have the resources to do that anymore, and especially now. So I don't know what they can do with Final Shape. I really don't. I want to be very hopeful, especially for the developers that are still working in this very stressful environment right now, and I feel for all those developers, especially those who are laid off as well. So I don't know. It's just really disappointing. But regardless, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a chibi-tastic day, night, evening, wherever you are. I'll see you in the next video. Chibi out.